Alright, so I'm hesitant because it's a 3-year bourbon from PA.
This is a 3-year bourbon.
This is from Lebanon. Now their corn whiskey they sourced and was really good. I wonder if this is going to be one of those things where I just want them to age it longer and I'll actually like it.
So this one's a really interesting one because it is a bourbon, but the mash bill is 10% malted barley. And you'd think it's a lot more than 10%.
Well, all it takes is a little bit of malted barley to make a big difference in a bourbon, especially a young one that hasn't had the chance to take in any of the barrel. Holy shit. It smells like a scotch. It's a scotch with a little bit of bourbon notes to it. I would expect the other way around. But You're fucking with me. That's a scotch. This is a straight bourbon. That tastes like a scotch.
Tastes like a scotch with bourbon notes.
And honestly, I get it more on the nose and the finish, the bourbon notes. On the palate, it's all scotch to me.
Yep.
The
finish is
the flavor's pretty good.
The finish is all bourbon, but you get so much malt in the palate.
The finish is it's really pleasant though.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweet, but it's not overbearing. It's not super hot, which I expected this to have a lot more heat for being a 3-year, but it really doesn't. I think the malted barley is what takes that away.
You know what? I like this. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I like it. And you know what?
It makes me really want to see if their double oak tastes like a bourbon versus a scotch, and it makes me want to try their other stuff. It's also worth noting it's 84 proof.
Yes.
They have another one that's almost 90 proof. I would want to try that too, but that's getting into the $40 to $45 range too.
Yeah, you get a slight.
This is only $30, right?
Yeah.
You get a Pennsylvania hug out of this, where it's
it's
like a Kentucky hug if it were child-proofed. Like where you put those little plastic locks on the cabinets that the kids can't open when you put the little gate at the top of the steps. This is what that tastes like. That might be the weirdest description for a bottle of anything I've ever given, but it works. That's what this is.
This is yeah. But
this is a child-proof bourbon.
But this is a child-proof Scotch bourbon. But yes,
but
it's good.
From what you described, I expected to like it less.
Right? I've had this prior to tonight.
Would I buy this exact bottle? No. Would I try their double oaked? Honestly, probably. And would I try this if they aged it longer? 100%. Because this has a lot of promise, and I want to see if it keeps the Scotch notes, or if that's just because it's got malted barley and it's young. I wonder if age gets rid of that.
Yeah, I'm like you said, I really want to try their double oak. I almost bought a bottle today, but I had self-control.
And instead we might just go halfsies on it later, because I would definitely split a bottle. If it's anything like this, I would split a bottle.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, this is unique.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way either. If I were buying a bourbon and I wanted a bourbon, this is not at all what I would buy.
If I bought this and I was expecting it to be full on bourbon, I'd be disappointed. But
if you go into this knowing it's going to be very different, it was above my expectations.
And I will say, I didn't buy this bottle. This is my dad's bottle, and he handed this to me. He did not tell me what it was, and I asked him what Scotch he had me try. At which point he told me it was a bourbon, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this every day of the week I would not guess this was a bourbon. I could tell that it had some bourbon notes to it. But I would think that it was a bourbon barrel finished Scotch.
That's exactly what I get out of it.
And I wonder if the age will make it seem more like an in-between, or if it'll shift more to bourbon, or if it'll stay like this. 10% malted barley is a lot for a bourbon. A lot of them don't do that. They'll do barley, but not necessarily malted barley.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the malted barley that really just it overpowers this, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, again, you need to go into it knowing you're not getting a traditional bourbon out of it. But if you can go into it expecting a non-traditional bourbon, it's good.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Considering the way you hyped it up, I expected it to be even more scotchy than it was. But no, it honestly, it's a pretty solid choice, if I'm being real.
Yeah.
I have to want this, but like,
if this is what you're looking for, it's great.
expected, like most PA craft whiskeys, you take one sip and you know it needs to age 3 or 4 more years before it's going to be any good. Like, you can tell it has promise.
Yeah.
Like Wiggle. Wiggle has promise. But
for sure.
Their regular stuff is hot garbage at the age that they have it at. All their unique things that they do are really fucking good. And their single barrels are pretty good, but no, this is, for being just their regular bourbon, that's, I want to say it's not a blend, but it's not like a single barrel or anything.
No.
I guess we can call it a small batch because it's a craft distillery that doesn't make a ton to begin with.
They also call it a small batch right here on the bottom.
Oh, do they? Okay, I couldn't see that part. It's angled at you. But
you could call it a small batch because they in fact do.
Well, I mean, also, you got to think that if they didn't, you could still call it one just because it's a craft distillery. There's no way that they have a ton of this. But, no, I'm pleasantly surprised.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and at that proof,
not bad.
It has a lot of presence for, it doesn't taste super light.
Yeah.
It tastes actually really complex, which does give me hope for longer age stuff from them. But, no, that's solid.